Well, either you're closing your eyes to a situation you do not wish to acknowledge, or you are not aware of the caliber of disaster.
Hello.
The Emperor has been expecting you.
You're gonna get your mind right.
Warning. Common sense incoming.
Alive. It's alive!
Warning, this contains explicit material suitable for children.
Great heavens! What kind of radio show is this?
This is the Blab.
I got to tell you, I miss. Dave's not able to see the graphic that goes up, and so the context of the opening piece of music is somewhat of a mystery, which is kind of cool because this way you get to experience the show not only as a participant but as a spectator.
Yes, yes.
Meaning you have both the opportunity to gain insight knowledge and say to yourself, "What the fuck am I listening to this shit for?" The theme of the show and the title of this week's episode is "Barry, Come Home, All Is Forgiven." That's "Come Back, Baby, Come Back." Mm-hmm. And I'm talking about Barry Goldwater.
Barry Goldwater.
I miss Barry Goldwater.
I thought you were talking about Barry Williams, Greg Brady.
No. I don't swing that way. But if I did, he'd be my first. No, I miss Barry Goldwater, and I'll tell you why, obviously. First of all, let me steer it in this direction. Dave did a thing this past weekend, and we had to find some bail money. No, he in fact, you had promoted this thing, so maybe it's not a strange thing. Why don't you explain to the folk what you did and who you did it with this past weekend, and then I'll elaborate on what I got.
Yeah, I back in April, I played on a Neil Diamond tribute album, and then from the album, we put together a little band to do a album release party, and then that went over really well, so we decided to do this tribute show. So we played 2 shows at the Milton Theater in Milton, Delaware.
A charming little venue.
Yes, Scott came. I was shy. Matter of fact, I didn't even believe he was there. That's how the recluse Scott Phelps is.
And that's how you create mystique.
So so we did with Solnoff, my good friend Billy Neal on guitar, Edgar Fernandez on keyboards, Mike Fletcher on bass, and it was me on drums. Obviously, it was great, wonderful time.
It was well done.
Yeah,
and the reason I bring it up, not only to say congratulations to you and good job and all the rest of that, is by way of saying that Saul during the course of the show said something that registered with me and beyond just the usual stage patter. And when I was assembling all the various parts of what we do for our, your stuff, my stuff, these stuff for doing this show, this episode, I thought, watch me connect these dots. He was remarking, and rightly so, after about the third song, what a pleasure it was to be out and playing live music again, and to be amongst people again. And there were some minor COVID protocols in place, but other than that, I mean, it was just like, wow, here we are in an audience listening in a nice theater, listening to a cool musical group doing a thing.
And with the minor COVID restrictions in place and the capacity restrictions, at any time, did you feel unsafe at any time?
No, not at all.
Yeah,
of course, I'm double vaccinated, so
right.
I'm unbreakable. If I die, it's going to be because I get hit by a vaccine truck or some shit like that. Because that's going to.
And we would like see that vaccine killed him after all.
That's right. Old joke. Guy quit smoking after 40 years, and a cigarette truck ran over him.
I tell you what, Jeff, Sushi Jeff.
Yeah.
From he got the Moderna, and the second shot hit him. He was down for a week.
Isn't that something?
So
I've heard those stories. Yeah. We had both of us, the wife and I, both of us had 2 Pfizers apiece, and with the exception of a sore arm, which I get with my regular flu shot every year.
Right.
Not a sniffle.
Julie had the first Moderna, and her arm was a little sore and into her back, but she had no fever or anything like that. Hers, I think around the middle of the month is her second shot.
Yeah.
But But Jeff came. I hadn't seen Jeff in over a week, and he came out today, and he's like, "I got that second Moderna
Well,
shot."
just like everything else that goes along with this virus,
Yeah.
everybody's different, and nobody knows what the circumstances are. So the moral of that story is take the fucking shots and wear the mask until you have to. But anyway, in the course of the show, after about 3 songs, Saul made that remark, and he was being positive, and I whenever I hear myself say things like this, I also hear myself and other people saying, "All right, what's the punchline, Mr. Cynic guy? Where are you going with this?" No, he was right, and I was feeling the exuberance and energy of that, and glad to be out socializing and doing the thing. But he did say, and this is the thing that hooked me, and later I brought it up, and after I was looking through some news stories, he kind of went into, it was just a little baby version of almost a political speech when he said, we've got a lot of good people. It's nice to be amongst people, and we got a lot of good people in the country, even the world, and kumbaya. And I don't mean to be sarcastic. I'm just saying it was that spirit of here we are and there we are. And I said, yeah. And I found myself, I didn't want to join hands and start singing We Are the World, but I got that same kind of little flushy feeling of there you go. Well, fast forward a couple of days, and now I'm looking through the news, which is always a mistake these days. I do. Actually, for a guy that kind of stuff we do, I've cut back so much on my looking at these things, and if I do, I just glance at a headline, and if I get a sentence or more into it, then I go, well, that's enough, because I'm tired of having that thing.
Right.
But anyway, long story short, if that's possible at this point, here's the summary and where I want to kind of springboard us to start on this. When I say I miss Barry Goldwater, was the Republican candidate for president in 1964, in case the kids don't know who he is and need a point of reference. Saul's right. There's a lot of good people. There's a lot of good people in the world, but let's talk about the good people in the country first up. I also believe that. All of my cynicism and yeah, you're right aside, I know that. In my heart, I know that. But here's what I also think. I also think that the number of good people are slowly but surely becoming outnumbered by the people who aren't. And it's not out of 10 people, 9 people are assholes and there's a good person. I'd like to think that there's still a majority of good people in any group of 10 people. But you know what the term tipping point means? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think we're getting closer and closer to tipping point. And here's the reason why. And I jotted these down real quick just so for point of reference. In my humble but also I read a couple of editorials from a variety of places that kind of echoed the same thing, and I found myself going, yeah, I don't like this. I don't like being right about this, but nevertheless. And that is this. America in the year 2021, meaning right now, is a country where civility, let alone common courtesy, are rapidly becoming on the endangered species list. Don't you find it, and do you find it, I know I do, when somebody does something courteous in public, a stranger, if they step back and hold the door for you to walk through at the store, do you find yourself going, thanks, but whoa, wow. And it catches you because it's not the norm. It's the exception. You're right. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I would say more than half the time people are holding doors and friendly. And here you go. My personal experience.
I understand. But again, and I'm not saying all is lost and we're doomed. I tell you doomed. What I'm saying is I think the amount of indifference and incivility is continuing to grow because it's being fed by a number of fuels and a number of fires. Here's another example. I'm an inner road rage guy. I've never intentionally driven anybody off the side of the road. Well, there was one wife, but I won't get into that. You can't, and especially in this neck of the woods, but probably everywhere now, you can't go anywhere except maybe from this block to that block. If you're out on any boulevard or any street or any highway, you can't look up in your rearview mirror and not see the teeth of the guy or gal driving behind you, no matter how fast you're going and what the speed limit is, because everybody needs to get where they need to go. And there's that, for those of us who are very sensitive, there's that sense of get the fuck out of my way. Where I have to go and what I have to do is more important, not only to me and who cares about you, but if it happens to risk your safety, then, I don't really care.
Yeah, I can see that.
All right. More and more often, the methods of communication in terms of other than just, hey, how are you? Hey, how are you? And we've talked about this a lot in different venues. It's more a matter of you talking to me or fuck me? No, fuck you. etc. And again, I keep wanting to bring it back to saying, take the 10 people. Let's say that 7 out of 10 are cool and good and gracious and kind, and 3 are assholes. My concern with it, my problem with it, my annoyance with it is that the numbers are changing, but they're not changing to go 8-2 and 9-1 and 10-0. All right. And last but not least, and this ties it where I want to head this thing, I think the most insidious symptom of all of that is that the current condition in this country that's making these things critical is this notion that rudeness, crudeness, intimidation, here comes the magic word, kids, bullying, disguised as integrity, honesty, patriotism, okay? That there's some notion that these are things to be proud of, not things to be ashamed of. That kind of behavior is almost heroic and deserving of medals. And hey, and it all begins, and of course, But here's the punchline of the punchline. It really isn't, for me anyway, it really isn't that there are still more good people than not. The thing is that whatever the number of not good is, no matter what it is, it's too many.
Right.
Now, let me jump to this, and you'll see why this all makes sense such as it does. Let's go to Arizona. Arizona Republicans are convinced that Donald Trump is still the president of the United States, and now they're recounting the ballots again. And you can't see me do this.
It's a desert out there, They might not have got the news.
And I promise. And
maybe they're like the Chinese people that were in the caves and they don't know the war's over.
I said, yeah. I said to myself when I saw the article and I saw the picture of the ballot boxes and the amount of money that's being spent on personnel and time and et cetera, and and it's like, and you can't see because we're not vidcasting, but this sound is me face palming. It's like, and I'm not going to rant about Donald, and I'm not going to rant about
that seems like 100 days in, that seems like a waste of money.
Seems like it goes to what I've been saying all along since moment one of day one, and when you and I really start to get bare knuckled about the business between Democrats and Republicans and the left side and the right side. And what I hold to is that the Republican, and I hold by what I've said for a long time, the Republican Party, in my way of thinking, doesn't exist. It's in exile, it's in hiding, it's in shambles, whatever word you want to use. There's the Democrats and there's the Trumpists, and Trumpism is a thing. It's not about Donald personally per se.
Well, there's a third thing in there as well,
Which third thing?
The far left Democrats.
Well, there's far right Republicans.
Right. But
the extremists on either side. Okay. And again, I don't want.
We're not getting into it, but yeah.
No, and the reason I keep saying that is because when I said I wanted to talk about this, it wasn't to hash up the same shit that we've been talking about in one form or another every week for the past 2.5 or 14 years or whatever it's been. But and Donald, and I'm going to let Donald go. To no one's
I don't think you can give him up. Very much like
I'm
never going to give him up.
I largely have. It's only when he appears to be when in his whack-a-mole way. Anybody who gives him credibility, anybody who gives him stature, anybody who gives him any kind of credit for anything is going to pull my trigger, and I'm going to be right there going, fuck that shit, smack that guy with the hammer and get rid of him, and let's move on. But this business of the Arizona recount, his exact comment was he issued some statement that he thanked the GOP lawmakers, quote, for the incredible job they're doing to expose the large-scale voter fraud. I predict the results will be startling, unquote. Here's what I think about all of this in one big hairy ball. Mm-hmm. Or two big hairy balls, if you choose it.
He said hairy balls.
Hairy balls. There comes a time when if you're being hustled, if you're being scammed, if you're being bullshitted, if you're being taken advantage of, if you're being hosed, if you're being screwed, pick a word, any word you want. There comes a time when it's no longer about the screwer. It becomes about you.
Right.
Because, hello, you're an idiot.
Fool me once, shame on you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. And circling back to the very beginning of the premise, I do. I've never been labeled or asked to be labeled as a conservative in terms of a total label. But I've invested in a lot of conservative ideas and approached it from those directions. I miss that.
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever voted for a Republican president?
Sure.
Which was the last one?
Millard Fillmore.
Did you ever vote for Reagan?
I think one of the 2 times, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe the first time. The second time, I didn't. And by the way, it's interesting you mentioned that. I stumbled. I wasn't looking for this, but I looked for something else. I found it on the line, on the interweb. You can find it on YouTube, I'm sure. It's an excerpt of a Johnny Carson Tonight Show from 1975, and his guest was Ronald Reagan. And Reagan was not yet running for office, not running for president. He'd already been governor of California. Right. So he was the former governor of California. It's a fascinating 14, 18 minutes. I watched the whole thing because I just sat there and went, wow. Because you would watch this and listen to this and you'd go, nothing's changed since 1975. Reagan's talking about, Johnny's asking questions like, well, you know, Governor, let me ask you this. We're so divided as a country, and how do you see and feel this, that, the other, and Ronald Reagan being Ronald Reagan. Well, government can't solve the problem because government's the problem. Audience, applause, applause, applause.
Right, right.
Okay. Nothing's changed. But here's the thing about it, and this is what I saw in it when I was watching that, and I started to pull it and record it, and I thought we'd play a chunk of that, but I said, shit, I'm not going to spend, I can just summarize in 30 seconds, which is what I just did. What's different now is that even then, and it was very clear that Reagan had no use for anything other than your hardline conservative down the line thing. And he didn't use these words, but if I'd have asked him this question, I'll bet he'd have answered in the affirmative. He and all of that generation and all of that period in political history saw the opposition as opponents.
Right.
Not enemies.
Right.
We don't have opponents anymore. We have enemies. And the fires continued to be fed and fueled every single hour of every single day to keep each other enemies.
By Charles Barkley is right. By the media.
Yeah. 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 And
they fuel outrage. They fuel hatred. They fuel, if anything should be outlawed, it probably should be cable news.
Somebody posted this afternoon, and I glanced at it, and I went, because what it was an article about Tucker Carlson's latest rant, and I don't pay any attention to him. I've said to you before, whatever interest I had in the guy, he's done, because now he's become Tucker. Believe it or not, and I read the article twice to make sure that I wouldn't misstate it if we talked about it. He's on this mask jag. Mask is the liberty of the hill he wants to die on when it comes to peace and liberty and justice. And he actually has said in the last 48 hours worth of his shows, that if you see parents making their kids wear masks, you should treat that the same way you would as if you saw children being abused and call the police.
Yeah, that's
stupid.
It is stupid. I mean, occasionally he hits it out of the park, but I think he's, like you said, he's going for ratings most of the time, and he's going to push those hot buttons to. Well,
the article that kind of quoted him on that particular thing was branching the idea. They said that Fox News should be taken off of basic cable and turned into a premium channel. And if you want it, then fine, pay for it. But in terms of it being right there, et cetera, and I said in my head, because I didn't want to engage in the conversation, if Fox News was off basic cable and became a premium channel, their viewership would probably drop by about 60%. Because there's only a certain percentage of people that are going to want to pay money to hear that kind of shit. But my point with this is, and let me wrap this this is for fun here, and let me put this up. You can't see it. It's just another thing that's got a picture of Goldwater in 64. I want to read you something real quick here, bullet points, and we'll play pop quiz. This is history. I went back and looked up a presidential campaign of some years ago. And this is just very quickly some bullet points of remember when political parties had platforms when they ran?
Yes, I remember.
Remember that?
I remember.
Yeah. Okay. And I won't tell you who and I won't tell you what year, but I will tell you this is what, or even what political party. I'm just going to give you this and then let you guess. Even if you just guess the party. This is what they were offering. If let's say I'm the candidate, if you elect me president in this year from my political party, here's what I'm going to do. Tax credits and other assistance to provide senior citizens the help they need to meet the cost of medical insurance. Full coverage of all hospital and medical costs for the elderly, financed by general revenue. A renewed support and endorsement of the Social Security program. Tax credits for the expense of a college education. Full implementation and faithful execution of the existing Civil Rights Act. Improvements of civil rights statutes as may be required, wait for it, to end the denial, for whatever reason, of the right to vote. Immigration legislation to reunite families. A reduction of not less than $5 billion in the present level of federal spending, and a continued effort to advance education on all levels. And then there were 62,000 other things, but that was the greatest hits. You want to take a wild, fun stab at that?
That's a Republican platform.
1964, Barry Goldwater, who at the time scared the living shit out of anybody who wasn't a conservative, because he was considered some kind of a conservative psychotic who was going to take the world to the right so far they'd fall off the flat earth.
I think he got you know who got a little bit of that treatment? Ron Paul. That Barry Goldwater treatment.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
You know.
But you know what? The point being, I'd embrace that shit with open arms right now, compared to the lynch mob shit that's going on.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, what's to do?
I don't know. It's just going to get worse, because, you know, I was going to send you a meme. It was a picture of Bill Murray from Groundhog Day, and he was holding the mic, and it said, "It's riot season again."
I saw it.
Yeah, I was like, you know, we are so divided. The flames are fanned daily. I don't know what there is. I don't even know if there is an answer. I really don't. I can tell you this with 100% certainty: the answer is not on the left or the right.
Never is.
It's in the middle.
That's where life is lived.
And we have to get back to the middle.
But I also think that it has to do, and you've heard me use this word a lot, not just in the recent weeks, but for the last several years, mindset. It's a mindset that we're fighting. It's not just a policy. It's not, well, if you put a Democrat in there and they'll take care of everybody and happy ever after, or if you put a Republican in there, they'll cut all that shit out and pare things down and move forward and blah, blah, and then we'll be happy ever after. No, because it's not. And that's for people who think it through, and there aren't that many on a scale of 1 to everybody. There's where I think a lot of the core of the frustration comes from, because there is no switch you flip. There is no candidate. There is no. I made a note the other day. A friend of mine. Let me shoot this. This is interesting. I posted something after the Chauvin verdict, when the cop was found guilty. I read a couple of articles real quickly summarizing the case, blah, blah. And I was feeling the need to get a little tiny bone out of my throat, so I threw up on the old blog. On the old blog site, and I posted this on Facebook. This is what I said at the moment, like several hours after the verdict was brought in. This is me quoting me. Quote: "This case was as much a referendum on common sense and common courtesy and common decency as was the elimination in November of the demagogue from the highest office, with all the imperfections that cannot be but expected in a population made up of flawed human beings. This verdict, like that election outcome, is another sign that good and decent people have had enough and are going to turn tides wherever and whenever the opportunity presents itself. Lynch mobs, political, professional, personal, take November and take today as notice served. You're done. Time's up." Now, that was my 2 cents. A friend of mine, lifelong ago friend, down in Nolens. We don't talk politics. In fact, we don't literally talk. We exchange a letter every now and then. He's deep in the heart of Texas, living in Louisiana, Christian, Jesus is going to save everything, hallelujah kind of guy. And I say that with love and respect, as much as I can muster. And he should know better than to engage me politically, but he couldn't resist, I guess, from whatever, because from that, I guess he took that I was touting the line. But this is his reply out of nowhere to that comment. He said, "Good and decent folks. You mean like Maxine, Nancy, Chuck, AOC, Harris, and lest we forget Yo Biden, the most puppeted president this country's ever had to endure. 3 months in and he's messed the U.S. up so bad it'll take the return of Jesus Christ to get it right. Oh, Scotty, you're really too smart to stay hooked up to the demonic party this long. Swim for the surface, pal." I didn't respond back, but I did write out something in the category of if I was going to respond back, this is what I would have said. And it just, one more time, underscores what I'm proselytizing to you. So, Ree, if you're listening, this is what I would have said to you. And I'm reading it because I want to make sure that I'm crystal clear, and I wrote it. So, again, I'm quoting me. "A lot, if not a whole lot, of what those who call themselves conservative in this country want to see happen in this country and want for this country is a lot, if not a whole lot, of what people like me, and label me any way you want that makes you feel like you're smarter, want to see happen in and want for this country. But here's 7 quick reasons why I'm ignoring you, and I'm ignoring, with each passing day, I'm having to consciously avoid having to write you off altogether once and for all. Nicole Boebert, Marsha Blackburn, Tennessee friends, Lauren Taylor Greene, Josh Hawley, Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, Rand Paul. Every party has its, well, those are good, those are bad, and those are hated. It's crazies. But you know what? If you want to replace shit, don't bring me other shit.
Right. Don't replace shit with shit.
Which circles back.
Or at the very least, replace it with new shit.
Fresh shit.
Fresh shit.
Lilac scented shit. You know, what the fuck was Rand Paul babbling about the other day? I
stopped listening to Rand. You know what's sad?
These people are forerunners of the Republican Party, and that's why I'm more. It bothers me more as not a Republican that these people are allowed to represent the Republican Party, because I always want to say to Republicans, really, do you guys understand what's happening here? You guys understand that what you've done is you've allowed these car salesmen to come out on the sales floor and say, "Hey, listen, this car's a piece of shit, but your sales staff needs some work." That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and but you understand the mirrored image of what's over on your side with Max. I mean, dude, Maxine Waters, Jesus Christ, how long is that bitch going to be in the house?
I don't know, and I don't have any argument with that.
Yeah,
but if you're, and I'm speaking rhetorically, if you're going to come at me about Maxine Waters and say, "Well, Maxine Waters, so you know what? Rand Paul."
Shit for shit. We're flipping shit cards.
Is that all you got?
Now, the thing that, and I mean, she almost, and it still may be overturned in the appeals process. She almost ruined that trial. I mean, you heard what the judge said.
Again, I'm not disagreeing with you.
I was like,
she's not one of the best and the brightest.
She's the worst and the dimmest.
And I'm not going to defend her or defend her position or her comments. I agree. Again, what I'm saying is, and what the fuck, it's. Yeah.
But then you have Nancy Pelosi backing her up on this bullshit and saying, well, she meant confrontation in a civil rights manner. No, she didn't.
The problem is, I know, but the problem is that somebody's got to be first to lay down the gun.
Yes.
Somebody's got to be first to stop spreading the shit. And the continued use of no matter how valid it is, the continued use of the methodology of, but what about, is pictured in your brain as, in a political sense, a hamster in a wheel going around and around and around and around and around, and we ain't going to go nowhere. And then the only other alternative is indifference. Who gives a shit? And people stop participating. They just go to their soccer games and they go to their whatever.
Yeah, well, I think the leadership of both parties, and when I say leadership, I'm talking about like Pelosi. I'm talking about like Mitch McConnell. I'm talking about...
Yeah, by the way, thank you for mentioning that. Kentucky needs to be expelled from the United States of America. Fuck the secession, okay? We're into Kentucky's into us for Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul. And they're pretty damn close to Texas, which we're going to slap Ted Cruz on their ass too. They need to just go away, and they need to be their own little country like they want to be.
But you have the leadership of the party, and they go along with whatever insane, batshit crazy thing that spews out of anybody within their group, their tribe. They'll back it up, like Pelosi did with Maxine Waters, like Mitch McConnell would do with Trump. Whatever the underlings, however far-fetched something AOC says or something someone else does, Pelosi or Mitch McConnell, the leadership of each party, they don't say, "All right, dude, check your fucking self. You need to back that down, or circle back like." What's her name says, you need to back that down and you need to put yourself in check. This isn't how this is going to work. But yet they perpetuate this problem.
Okay.
The leaders of both parties.
And there we are.
And the wheel goes round and round.
At the mercy of
those people. But I mean, you agree with that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just,
the only other thing that, the only other thing that occurs to me is the thing that it's even more difficult than getting them to stop doing it. And that's getting average people to do whatever is necessary to step up and get really involved, besides just showing up at the polls every 4 years and voting for who they think is going to take care of their one issue.
Right.
Okay. That's a form of apathy. Mm-hmm. And I got news for you, kids. Believe me now, believe me later. If COVID don't kill you, apathy will. I'm just saying.
Yeah, and we talked about those one issue voters, and I mean, at its core, I get it, because we had a long discussion of this. At the core, you get it.
Well, we're dovetailing.
But you have to be more than that.
That dovetails us back to where I opened with this thing. Is basically what I was saying was, in my own quasi polite way, was saying America is full of selfish, fucking pampered people who don't give a rat's ass about anything but themselves.
Right.
And that's going to kill us. Yeah, well, let's talk about something charming. I got another political thing, but let's take a breather. What do you got? We're just two guys talking here. I'm talking here. Let
me see.
I'd like to, by the way, I wanted to mention, I told Dave before we went on that just not to jump tracks too much, but the show, the Neil Diamond tribute, Saul Knopf up front and center, Dave and Eddie.
Edgar, Billy, and
Edgar and
Mike.
Billy and Mike, yeah. Top flight musicians all. Lovely little theater, quaint kind of theater. They had a stage, obviously. They had a screen thing that hung down behind. And again, it was a kind of a low, I'm not demeaning it at all. I'm just saying in terms of the scope of it, it was kind of a local theater presentation type thing, but still, classy. And this screen type dealio with the AV stuff that you could, pictures of the album and psychedelic lights and all that shit. Well, the HDMI cable, there was a matinee performance and an evening performance. And we were at the matinee. And the HDMI cable went to shit. And I knew it instantly because when I was watching, it was the album cover trying to show up and it kept getting all flaky. At first, I thought it was an effect. Oh, that's cool. But then I looked up, and in the top right-hand, because my wife said, "Is that are they doing that on purpose?" And I said, "No." I said, "Look up in the top right corner of the screen, you could see a little gray bar that said computer 1." And so you were looking at a facsimile of the computer screen where it was trying to happen. I bring all that up only by way of saying that the HDMI cable apparently went bad. So they weren't able to do it. So they raised up the screen, and Saul handled it nicely. You'll just have to live with us alone, clap, 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 blah, blah, blah. And I thought to myself, and I meant to tell you this, I didn't realize it until after I thought it through. I'm not going to rat you out to Saul or the guys, because the quality of the presentation was first rate anyway. But it dawned on me on the way home as I was contemplating. And especially the next day when I saw video and pictures that you had posted of the evening performance where that shit had been straightened out and they got the full presentation.
Right.
What I got was the version that didn't have any pictures. Ring any fucking bells?
It rings some bells. The Neil Diamond tribute was like a Scott Phelps novel.
been bitching at me about not putting pictures in that autobiography for 3 years, and the next morning I'm seeing the little video of wow, that was cool. I wish we could have seen that. So we didn't get to see the pictures, and in my own head I went, didn't get any pictures. God damn.
So now you know how I feel.
Dave sabotaged that cable so that I would not be able to see the pictures. All right.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Good show.
The Oscars, did you watch?
No.
Neither did I. Neither did I.
In fact, I threw that in the category a little later about, believe it or not, I threw it in the We Recommend, but go ahead and run with it.
Did you hear what the producer, the actual producer of the Oscars said? He said, Oscar viewers.
I'm sorry.
Oscar viewers shut off their televisions en masse the very minute that celebrities start opining on politics. He said, increasingly, the ceremonies are less about entertainment honors and more about progressive politics, which inevitably annoys those in the audience who disagree, which equals poor ratings. I like, and this will dovetail into the whole LeBron James bullshit that's been going on the last 2 days or 3 days. I liked my celebrities and my sports figures when they were less political. They didn't have to be non-political, but when it wasn't their main agenda. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think what happens is it's a mistake to be too many people. The Dixie Chicks had a major issue, obviously, with years and years ago when Natalie Maines made the snarky remark about George W. And the next thing you know, they were off of country radio and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And they got death threats, and it was a whole thing. And they even wrote a song called "Shut Up and Sing." That, and I'm not ready to make nice. And in it, they talked about they got death threats where people would say, "Shut up and sing, or we're going to kill you," and all that.
Right.
All right. I think it's a mistake, or unfair, frankly, to say, and even stupid to say to a celebrity or a sports figure, an actor, a singer, whatever, just, you're a singer. I don't want politics, blah, blah, blah. They're people. They're voters. Right. They have opinions. They're entitled. I think the key, like so many other things, at least as is for me, is context. If a celebrity is in a discussion environment, or if they're on an interview program if they go on the Tonight Show and when they're with, screw Fallon, that's a frat boy show. If they're on with Colbert and they're horsing around talking about the movie or the new album or the latest game or whatever, and then Colbert turns it in the direction of politics and they want to talk about that, then they're entitled and they should.
Right.
And there's no reason why they shouldn't. I don't particularly want to go to a concert that I've carved up $50 or $100 or whatever the case may be and then listen to political stuff. I think it really boils down to nothing more complicated than right place, right time.
Right. And win an award,
Yeah, and the argument I think a lot of them come back with when they say that is, well, I feel obligated. I have a platform. I feel the patriotic need to utilize it and speak my piece and et cetera. But once again, I would offer, and it makes conservatives crazy because somebody like me saying this makes them batshit. It's a matter of right place, right time.
Right.
There's a time for everything, and that's not
exactly
the time.
Yeah.
So,
And apparently the producer of the Oscars feels the same way.
Well, these are particularly volatile times, but that's another one of the things that conflates into this thing is what I'm talking about. Is that it's enemy action. Everybody is in DEFCON mode because we don't have opponents.
Right.
And we're not being encouraged to have opponents. We're not being supported to have opponents. We're not saying, may the best man or woman win. We're saying, fuck you, do it my way, and all the bets are off. Okay?
Right.
It started, I lay 90%, I do, and I don't apologize for it, and I'm no longer arguing with people about it. You take it or leave it, I don't care. I lay 90% of that shit at Trump's doorstep because that's how he got into the office, was using that methodology, fanning the flames and feeding the fires. I trace the beginnings back to 2008 when Obama was elected the first time. The racism that is screamingly obvious in this country, but we pride ourselves on, oh, look how far we've come. And speaking of Mitch McConnell, who famously at the beginning of the first Obama term basically said, my goal is to make this guy a one-term president, and anything he sends me, I'm going to shoot down. I'm a reasonable guy. I have my moments of passion, but I'm a pretty smart fella, and I'm here to tell you, with no moonbeam, no tinfoil hat, no skies falling bullshit, I honestly, when it happened, and I still do all these years later, McConnell pulling that shit was nothing more nothing more than Kentucky plantation owner. That nigga needs to know his place, and that's how things are going to be. And the wheels started to roll, and the smoke started to smoke, and the fire started to burn, and the division. And then instead of people coming up in positions of power or authority and saying, whoa, we need to calm down now. Let's try to work this out. Let's find the compromise. Let us reason together, blah, blah, blah. Bring on the gasoline and bring some more matches. And that's where we are.
Yeah. Racism is not as bad as the media is making it.
That's not any comfort to the people who are subjected to it and the amount of it that goes on. One case of it is too many. Who cares? What cares about the numbers? It's the principle of the thing.
I see.
It's like the Chauvin thing. And I said, why in the world? And I think I even, I'll save the bulk of that because that's my last little parting editorial today. But we all watched him kill that guy.
Right.
So why is anybody saying, well, but there's no but. He killed the guy.
It was despicable. But, and here's the but, and that has nothing to do with the killing. The outrage in that case was manufactured by the media and perpetuated by Black Lives Matter, and on and on and on and on.
Okay.
Because those killings happen all the time. Look at the Tony Timpa tape. The 9 minutes of the knee on his back. Try 14 minutes of a knee on Tony Timpa's neck. Tony Timpa's white. Tony Timpa has all the same issues: resisting arrest, fentanyl, cocaine.
I know. But see,
But you see what I'm saying?
I know, but the danger, not the danger. The problem with that is, in using it in terms of analyzing and then working for solutions along the way, is that although it's not intended to be justification, that's really kind of what it sounds like.
No, it's not justification.
I said,
Right.
listen to what I'm saying.
Okay.
See, there's another thing. Pull the defensive trigger without pausing for 10 seconds and understanding what I'm saying to you. I'm not saying that it is. I'm saying that it's very easily perceived that way when it comes that way, and then perception becomes reality. Well, whites get abused too. Yeah, okay. But no. There's just, at some point it's different. If for no other reason, nobody went over to Scandinavia in 1622 and filled up ships full of my white ancestors and kept them in a pile of shit for 3 years as they came back across the ocean, and then showed up in the United States, locked them in chains, and whipped the shit out of them for 100 years. So yeah, there's a little difference going on. All right. And it gets in the way of solving the problem. It gets in the way of stopping that treatment. It gets in the way. But the point with the Chauvin thing was, like I said, he did it. It's obvious that he did it. And yet the fire fueling, feeding the fire, how many times I read over the course comment threads, and not by media, but by people on social media saying, well, if he hadn't resisted arrest, okay. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just one of those libtard snowflakes who thinks past the dumb obvious and goes to the second step. To me, that's exactly like saying, well, if she just worn panties, then he wouldn't have raped her. Wrong is wrong.
Right? No, I don't think anybody with any sense of intelligence saw that.
There's the problem.
Thought that wasn't outright murder. I don't think it was premeditated murder, but
there's
what I mean.
But as I said earlier, if there's only one person if the not good people are still less than the good people, the numbers are irrelevant. It's the fact that there are still too many of those not good people floating around out there taking this approach, and they're being aided and abetted by the media. Well, I said earlier, when I don't watch a lot of the news stuff or read a lot of it in depth online, is one of the reasons is because I'm just push back, lashes out, strikes a blow, the words, every single fucking news story, even the mainstream media stories on both sides of the fence, sensationalizing, dramatizing, yelling fire in the crowded theater. It's like, I just want to take, I don't know, I wish I had a magic wand to just wave over the nation full of peace and love, or In lieu of that, I wish I had a fucking flamethrower so big that I could just toast everybody and say, let's start over and be done with it, because you people are making us crazy.
Well, one of the things that I do, I feel that the police are getting really beat up in the press, by the public, when it's blown out of proportion when one case comes to the forefront. And I'm not talking, that's the Derek Chauvin case is totally, that is outside of any realm of anything that you could experience. You know, that is totally bad. But you get these things like that happened to that the police officer in Ohio that had to shoot that girl. She was going to kill that other girl.
Did you see the story that I forwarded? Maybe not, because I know you were busy working until the time you came over. In Colorado, Loveland, I think. The 3 officers have been suspended.
With the mentally ill? Or Yeah.
They broke her arm. They dislocated her shoulder. 75 years old. Mm-hmm. Looked at the video together later.
And laughed.
And said, we crushed it. I would offer you this. I would offer you that directly connects back to a tried and true favorite SCP maxim. I think that has to do with the generations that are involved who don't have a fucking care in the world about self-sacrifice or compassion or concern. We're powerful. We're cops. Hey, and they've been fed to believe in the last, especially the last 6 or 7 years, but let's say the last 10 years, 10 plus years. And if you're only 30, that's a third of your life, that shit's cool.
Yeah, it's no.
Of course it's not, but that's where, see, and there you go. All right, on a cheerier note, I'm very excited. Caitlyn is running for governor of California.
Oh, yes.
No, I'm not.
Why not?
She creeps me out. And I don't.
You don't like size 16 stiletto heels?
Let me tell you something, darling. And the Behar was in Dutch because she misgendered her, called her he. I don't know what
I'm tired. I don't know what to call he, she, it. I don't know, dude. It's crazy.
Well, here's real quickly. Kimmel had this joke in his monologue, and I looked at several of them had it. As you can imagine, they ran with it in their monologues, but I thought this was the funnier one of the bunch I saw. Kimmel said, Caitlyn is running as a Republican, to some people's surprise, and has promised that if she is elected, she will make sure that she is never again allowed to use a public restroom.
That's a good one.
You know what it is with her? Here's my prediction, and I didn't make this up. I heard it, but I'll take credit for it. She needs a reality show because the Kardashians are going away, and she's going to lose her source of income, and she can't be on the Wheaties box anymore. There's going to be that. So that's nothing more than just the problem with that is that's exactly what Donald Trump did when he needed some attention and et cetera. Oops! Now I'm president. California, be careful, man.
Well, I have a little nugget. One of our all-time show favorites. She would be in the Hall of Fame.
Cardi B.
No.
Okay.
Lori Lightfoot was at it again this week.
Chicago.
Guess what? She's tackled police reform with the sense of intelligence that she's tackled everything else since she's been mayor. In Chicago now, police officers would be required to seek approval from a supervisor before pursuing a suspect on foot.
Stay right there a second while I make a phone call.
So apparently, and this is what the news broadcaster said, one is left to wonder what is the point of having a police force if a suspect can escape with a healthy 6-mile-an-hour jog.
Could I get you to just stand right there for just a second? I need to make a call.
And we've discussed her at length. Would we expect anything different from her?
No, but here's the next thing, and it's not any way, shape, or form a justification, rationalization, or explanation, or defense of her as a person. Who the fuck put this person into the most important office in Chicago? Not to mention the fact that if you think about being the mayor of Chicago, is with the exception of being the mayor of New York, mayor of Los Angeles, and mayor of Chicago, are probably on an equal footing of being president in terms of the amount of responsibilities and all that. once again, you got to go back to the source and say it's not like she snuck in there one night and took over the place and they said, "Uh-oh, Lori's mayor now. What are we going to do to get rid of her?"
I mean, who in the fuck would vote for her? It blows my mind.
That's what I'm just talking about.
That just blows my mind.
I'm telling you, COVID is beatable. Stupidity is fatal.
I knew you'd get a kick out of
Lori Lightfoot.
Lori Lightfoot.
Let me give you a little quick 2 cents thought too about the whole California recall thing. Because this is, I think.
Oh, with the governor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Though they have a recall election going on there. I've long been a proponent of the concept of recall election. I'm fine with it. I would like to see something done on a national level. 4 years is too long to put up with incompetence and bullshit.
Senators and...
I'm talking about president. Take it all the way, absolutely, all the way up to the top. Okay? You're hired to do the job. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your party is. You're hired to do the job. This business of... And one of the 7 things that still make my asshole pucker shut is when I hear somebody come along and go, "Well, yeah, if you don't like the president, we've got ways to fix that in this country. It's called an election." Well, fuck you. 4 years, as we've just learned, is a long, long time. But having said that, here's a thought that occurred to me while I was having thoughts that I thought would occur to me. The problem with recall elections in the timeline of America in the year 2021 is that they really are the political equivalent of the cancel culture. Instead of saying, we elected you to this job, and you're an employer.
Right.
So go with me on that train of thought. Mm-hmm. I hired you. You're not performing to expectation. Now I could fire you. I'd like to give you a real opportunity to do this right. Here's what I expect, and here's the timeline in which I expect you to get these things done. And if you don't, then we're going to have another conversation, and it won't be as pleasant as this one is, blah, blah, blah. In other words, fix it.
Right.
But turning into this, recall, and especially at a time when nobody is ever satisfied unless it's all about them.
When did Barney Fife sneak in here?
That was actually my Gomer Pyle. Citizens arrest! Citizens arrest! It's just, again, I'm on this jag, but I think it's going to be a theme all through the year. It's just, to me, it's one more testament to this lazy, selfish, basically valueless attitude in this country where, we elected this guy or this guy, and on the other side of it too, if the other side doesn't get their candidate elected, instead of sucking it up like previous generations did and saying, well, we'll bitch about it at the bar, and we'll on the golf course and et cetera, but it's our country and we got to get behind it and et cetera, et cetera. No problem. We can replace them. And then nothing ever gets done because we're in perpetual replacement.
Well, it's mode. Like a revolving door. Yeah.
Cancel culture.
It's like being in the Trump administration.
For the 20 minutes that it goes on. All right. Let me, what have I got going on here? Oh, let me jump into rim shots. Just because it's there and we've allotted some time, but we got some more. I've actually reversed the segments here in a minute, so we'll have another. We'll have another chance to chat here in a minute. But I want to get this cutting edge comedy out of the way. One in 10 people who have, and Dave and I were talking about this earlier. 1 in 10 people who have taken their first shot of Pfizer or Moderna are not showing up for their second shots. Believe it or not, a serious number of them are saying they feel like one shot is protection enough. Meanwhile, new research apparently empirically and conclusively proves that 1 in 10 people are fucking idiots. With MDs. New study says that neither Pfizer nor Moderna pose any risk during pregnancy, which is good. The biggest risk to pregnancy still remains the gender reveal party. Who they blowed up real good? Who started this setting off thermonuclear devices in the backyard?
I have no clue.
I used to weep for mankind. I used to weep for the country. Now I just go, you know what? I'm going to be 70 years old in about 4 months, and I'm going to coast to the end. I'm going to coast to the finish line and I'm going to start laughing more. Indiana, Utah, Tennessee, and South Carolina are the only 4 states that have no locations available for nude sunbathing. There's no punchline here, which tells me that when I was constructing the rim shot stuff, I had an idea, but the punchline escaped me, so I don't know what the hell I was thinking. All I can offer is that if you're interested in finding out whether your area should or should not endorse the idea of nude sunbathing, call in and we'll take your call. I think basically all you have to do is stop into your local Walmart and check any aisle, and that'll tell you. All right. A Florida-based father and his 3 adult sons face federal charges for selling a COVID miracle cure that doctors say once ingested basically becomes industrial-strength cleaning bleach. They've been indicted by the feds. They've made over $1 million so far selling this shit to people, I'm sure, who wear red caps. And at least one of the 4, we understand, is now the new presumptive nominee for the GOP in 2024. And this one's for Dave. Vice President Kamala Harris met virtually, that means on screen, not in reality, with the president of Guatemala this past week. Guatemala, of course, is what Fox News insists her first name really is. And we got, what do we got? Let's see. I changed the numbers. I'm going to screw something up. Watch how I do this. We do this and this. That's one more little talkie fest before we do parting shots, because I know you got something else you want to riff on.
You know who Thomas Sowell is? He's an economist.
Sure.
Yeah. He said something that really kind of resonated with me. I saw an interview with him the other day. I actually wrote it down. And I said, if this doesn't sum up America today, I don't know what does. He said, we seem to be getting closer and closer to a situation where nobody is responsible for what they did, but we are all responsible for what someone else does.
Yeah.
I mean, is that like hitting the nail on the head in one sentence?
Yeah. It's another way of saying that, what was my bumper sticker a couple weeks back? Hashtag accountability.
Yeah.
There isn't any. There is no, and there isn't, well, again, I'm the one that always jumps on the don't be, there's always exceptions to the rule. The concern is there's just much more irresponsibility, much more. I have yet to see, there was another one today that crossed the desk. Somebody did something in some national political position and they screwed up and they did this and they apologized. And I got almost, I was hoping, I was coasting to the end, man. I could see the end of the article in sight and I was so fucking close. And I thought, here we go. And then boom, there it was, 3 sentences from the end. But she said the reason it was because her fever or her Vicks was spoiled or she had a stick in her pussy or whatever the fuck they... There's always an excuse. Nobody takes responsibility for anything, and that's a generic thing, not a generalized thing. But and you know what? We joke about it, or we even get a little high and mighty and preachy about it. But man, I'm telling you, this is serious shit. That's the kind of stuff that dismantles civilizations. If it's not contained, it's like a cancer.
And you're right. Nobody takes personal responsibility. And I've noticed our politicians, and almost to a T, I mean, there may be one or two, have no self-awareness. Zero.
I think and again, I will offer you, I think a lot of it, not all of it, but I think a lot of it's generational.
Yeah.
Privilege, whether it be white privilege, whether it be middle-class privilege, whether it be they didn't have to fight in war. They didn't have to live through a polio. And I thought the COVID thing, because I remember a year or more ago, we talked about an asteroid coming or dinosaurs or an alien invasion. Or a pandemic. And we went through that. And what happened? And what is still happening? It's just another exercise in selfishness. Mm-hmm. People shooting each other or knifing each other because somebody's making you wear a fucking piece of cloth on your face.
It's crazy.
Yeah, that's not the word I use for it.
It's insane.
Yeah, that's real good. Let's do, I forgot what to do with that. See, I changed all these things. Here we go. Let's try this. There we go. All right, I have a tiny 20-second editorial to take us out with. So what else you got?
Well, I got one thing.
Okay.
Do you remember the subpoena is a subpoena show and everything?
It's a classic Jerry.
The classic Jerry.
Podcast gold, Jerry.
And then the next week, the guy wrote in and said Dave was right. And,
and then block that out of my memory.
Occasionally some things happen, Dave is right. And if history's telling us anything with this show, that Dave is usually right. So we were talking about Joe Biden's...
Still didn't get any fucking pictures of the show.
We were talking about Joe Biden's performance so far, and we gave grades.
Okay.
And what was your grade again? You said B. You said like B plus or something, or B minus.
B minus.
B minus. Okay. And I said D minus, and you told me it was well. The ratings are in.
Well, from where?
Well, it was a national poll. It was
Okay.
It was reported on Fox, on MSNBC, on CNN.
Okay.
Joe Biden has a 54% approval rating.
Okay.
Which is the second lowest in 100 years. And we both know who the lowest was.
By a long shot.
By
Yeah.
10%. It was 42%.
Yeah.
The average is 66%. So 54% would slide right in at D- where I said it would.
Okay. Now watch how I totally disregard that.
Okay.
I saw that in a different form the other day. It was yesterday, I think. Or maybe it was this morning. I get up early. I lose track of days sometimes. Especially if I've been out partying listening to Neil Diamond tributes.
Hey, that's hard. That's hardcore.
I'm telling you, man. I don't care. And here's the reason I don't care. And I'm not a hypocrite about it. I don't care in general about that shit anymore.
Right.
I don't. I understand the science of polling, and I understand that it can be used for the good of mankind and blah, blah. And it is a useful strategizing tool for various people when they need to do something, and focus groups. And you get people's opinions about certain things.
Right.
I've participated in them on both sides with product and et cetera. Things are so fucked up in life, in the world in general, but in this country in particular, that it doesn't surprise me. And in going along with the I know you are, but what am I, or but what about, or that whole thing that I mentioned at the outset, 54% is one of those kinds of numbers where you go, 54%? Hell, man, that's more than half the people who like what he's doing. There you go. 54%, well, shoot, man, that's the second lowest. Okay, it just depends on whether you're up, whether you're down, whether you're black, whether you're blue, which generally means none of it ultimately means a fucking thing, except whatever you want to grab onto to be able to say, yeah, I don't believe in them anymore.
Right, right.
Plus, I don't believe in the concept. I don't believe that even those who are professionals who do it professionally, we went through this during the Trump times. I think a lot of people lie when they're asked questions like that. And there's a whole myriad of reasons. I think there was a time in the beginning of polling, maybe back in the 1930s or 40s, but especially in more contemporary times, if somebody came up and said, are you going to vote for Senator Kennedy or Vice President Nixon? Well, I like Mr. Nixon. I'll be voting for him. Okay. Or I like that young Kennedy guy. He's Catholic, but I still like it. In other words, there was a measure of honesty in the culture. There was a measure of honesty and integrity and kindness and et cetera, all those things that are seriously lacking in America 2021 right now. I think right now somebody would say, yeah, I'm voting for Nixon, because they're afraid or don't want anybody to know they're going to vote for that Catholic. All right. With Trump, they say people, it doesn't mean anything. No, it's just one more thing. And it's been used and abused and reabused so much.
I tell you what it does mean. That Dave was right again.
You know, I did a survey. 61% said that's bullshit. I don't want you to tell you.
That's what I want to say. You know, and it's I get it. And today we're very divided and everything. I just wanted to.
You talking about you and me, or
you and me? I just wanted to slide in the I'm right thing. The 54%. You know.
Okay.
The only thing that got me, I was like, you know, here's the president that got more votes of any president in the history of mankind. And I would have thought his numbers would have been a little bit
But
bigger.
you know why?
You know what I mean?
All right, and
that's a fair assessment.
I understand, but I'm offering this as the wizened, wise guy who's 15 years older and farther down the road and has my perspective on what's going on in the world and in life in general from that vantage point. And I'm telling you why. Part of the reason, if not a large part of that reason, do you know why he got as many votes as he got, but his approval rating is only 54%? It dovetails back to a lot of people are just fucking selfish. He's not doing exactly what they want him to do. He's not yet covered their one issue. He's not gotten us the Kiwanis Club building that we wanted put up on Main Street. Me, I. He hasn't done for us, or me yet.
Right.
So I don't approve of what he's doing. Selfish fucking people. That's why.
It could be. Could be the case.
Trust me, I'm right.
No, I'm right.
Yes. You're right about the numbers, but I'm right about the reason why. And everyone listening, we're just going to nod, smile, and say to Dave, when you talk to him, say, Dave, you were right, because he loves that.
Don't worry, the emails will be coming in.
All right. On that cheery note, here's my 20 seconds of editorial comment, and it kind of addresses what I said when we were talking about Chauvin. And speaking of surveys, here we go. A majority of Republicans surveyed now say that the verdict was wrong. Unfair to him, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go there. All I'm going to do is quote myself from a piece that I wrote actually after one of those articles of somebody justifying one of those idiots who said something like, well, if George Floyd had just not resisted arrest. Yeah, okay. If only she had worn panties, she wouldn't have been raped. Here's what I wrote. And this is all I have to say about it, and I won't bring it up again. And I'm quoting myself, I'm not making this up right now. At the core of this thing, and listen very carefully, kids, considering all the other things, and there were plenty of them, that he could have done to deal with that situation. Cuff the guy, put him in the back of a car. Cuff the guy, leave him on the sidewalk. Cuff the guy, leave him face down in the street. The list goes on. With all of the options available to this guy, why would anybody with any shred of intelligence or decency feel the need, let alone the righteousness, to rationalize, justify, or even defend what this cop did? The essence of the malignancy that is eating away at the American existence is this newfound liberty that is nothing more than arrogant narcissism, thinly and badly painted over with a coat of cheap honor, even patriotism. Believe me now, believe me later. That attitude right there is a knee on the neck of a nation. There's a bumper sticker for you. And an American cardiac arrest, if that shit don't stop, it's only a matter of time. There's George Floyd's family calling to thank me.
But one thing as we're tailing out. So you don't believe the Biden poll, but you believe the poll that says Republicans?
No, I said it didn't matter whether they believe. I'm not validating the poll.
Okay.
I'm simply saying that it's the point of my dissertation. There's just no rhyme or reason under any circumstances.
Oh, there isn't
for this, and the fact that people do it, and the fact that people get defensive and angry and resent the fact if you call them on it. There's the malignancy I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay,
Now,
it's the shrug. And I'm telling you, just because it is, not because I say it is, it's going to kill this country.
Yeah, I thought you were cherry picking polls.
Oh,
I said polls.
We've moved. So you got to listen. You got to stay with me. I moved 4 paragraphs ahead there, and we'd already established that you were right. So your rightness is safe for this time. Oh. All right. Anything else, Mr. Wright?
I got nothing. I just wanted to
thank you. Yeah, you damn right.
Wanted to thank you and the missus for coming out to the show. That was a great surprise.
Well, we were delighted to see you. You know, we love you, and we're very impressed with what you do, and you're a talented guy, and you should see Dave wherever you can. He's a world-class musician, and he's always right. Ultimately, one way or the other. Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it, because I think you know me well enough to know that that's pretty much it for ever seeing me out in public again.
To those listening, he sent me a text letting me know he was there, and I still didn't believe him.
And that, children, is how you create a mystique. More instructions on that next week. We'll be back with more of The Blab.
One day you'll wake up and find it's just a matter of